Good afternoon.
Hi, Renee. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful in Northeast region. How are you today?
I'm doing good. I brought a friend today.
I see that. Who's your friend today?
So with us today is Constable Brad Scoyne from Fort Frances Detachment. It's Rainy River District Detachment. Fort Frances, the actual detachment in Fort Frances. So hey, Brad,
Good afternoon.
Hi,
how you doing
Brad. Nice
today?
to meet you.
I'm great. Thanks for having me along.
I understand you're a little tired. You worked night shift last night.
I did, yeah. Got off work about 7 a.m. this morning, slept a few hours, and here we are. And I'm
Awesome.
actually in a different time zone than you both are, too, which is a fun little fact about the Rainy River and Kenora districts, is we fall an hour behind in this little sliver of Ontario. So, yeah,
Yeah,
it's
that's
1 o'clock local time here. So,
growing up in Atikokan, which is only an hour and a half away from Fort Frances. I lived that my whole youth, and I still get it wrong to this day as an adult. Now that I'm in Thunder Bay, having to, deal with the time change and whatnot, I still have a really hard time remembering when you're on the same, when Atikokan is on the same time as Thunder Bay and when it's on the same time as Winnipeg, because they don't change at all, and you guys are always like an hour behind us.
yes, exactly. So,
But when
yeah, thanks
scheduling
for
things
having me.
like this, having both time zones in our region, sometimes I mess things up, and I miss a meeting because I've come on too early, usually, or too late. So
Yeah. Yeah, you were very clear yesterday when we spoke. So,
I have to. I have
yeah,
to.
it was good.
That's more for me than you, though.
Yeah, good, good.
To make sure he gets here on time. And thank you to
Yeah,
How are
everyone
things?
that's tuning in today.
Steve says, excellent turn, Sergeant Mills. You caught that, eh? That was my thing. Is just trying to be a little bit more,
I know.
dramatic. And how are things
Sometimes it's the
in,
side angle.
what's that?
Sometimes it's the side angle you come in on.
Yeah.
You never know. You got to
I was
stay
gonna,
tuned.
I was gonna be eating a sandwich, and next time maybe.
Next time.
How are things in North Bay, Renee?
Things are good. I just opened my blinds and we have a clear blue sky. It's really nice today. We've had the odd winter. I don't know how it is for you all through Thunder Bay, but we've had these really mild spells where things are melting and freezing and snow and then melting and a little bit of everything. So today's clear blue skies and it's gorgeous out.
Enjoy it while you can. You should be on
Yeah,
location today.
I know. I was just thinking that I should have been live on location somewhere because it's absolutely beautiful. But I'm at Northeast Region headquarters today, so joining you from the Northeast right at headquarters.
um, so I guess no questions yet that I can see. A little slow start. We wanted to talk a little bit with Brad. I brought Brad on the call today so that we could talk a little bit about the application. So Brad is a really good example of like attention to detail, being thorough, and really putting together a great package when he applied. So Brad's been on. I'm going to turn it over to you for a few seconds here, Brad. So just tell a little bit about yourself and kind of what your process in the OPP has been like.
Sure, yeah. So I've been on now for 3 years with the OPP. I decided when I turned 30 that I was going to do a career change from a private sector business into the public sector. I'm originally from the southwestern Ontario area, so I'm between Chatham and Simcoe is where I mostly grew up, and went through the application process down there in West Region with those recruiters anyways. And so, started early. I'd say my application process, I probably put a solid 4 or 5 months time into making sure everything was put together and thoroughly looked after. And the one point that I really thought was of greatest benefit, I'm hearing that I'm pretty muffled and quiet. Are you guys getting that too?
Yeah, I can hear you, but you're a little quiet.
I'm gonna try taking the AirPods out here. see if the computer just works better.
Give us a test. I'll answer a couple quick questions while you're figuring that out, Brad.
Is that any better?
No, not at all. So
It's worse.
Janine's asking, should letters of reference be addressed to someone specific? They can be addressed to the manager of uniform recruitment. That's usually a pretty good generic address for any correspondence that you want to give.
Johnny has a good question.
What's Johnny's
Johnny,
question?
I'm just trying to scroll here. Give me a minute. Johnny's question was,
Oh.
do you have to pick 6? Can they just let you go wherever you like to go, wherever you're chosen to go? The 6 preferred detachment locations, pick your 6 favorite. So do some research, look at the entire province, understand what duration postings are and all of those wonderful things that come with the province of Ontario and working for a province. They're all fantastic opportunities. Learn your detachments. The detachments are online at opp.ca, and figure out the places that would best suit you and where you would like to police. Then pick your favorite 6. If we can give you one of your 6, we absolutely will. If it's not operationally feasible, then you'll get an alternate location offered should you make it to that being offered employment stage. But also let your recruiter know through the process if you're willing to go anywhere. That's a great thing to let us know so that we understand your flexibility, and we definitely will ask those questions through the process anyway.
Perfect. Can you hear me now? Is that any better at all?
Yes.
Yeah, I think you're back to where you were before.
Okay, perfect.
Just speak a little louder, maybe, Brad.
Sure, yeah, definitely. Yeah, so as I say, I went through the application process in West Region with recruitment there. I think that the number one thing that helped me through the application process, and is something that I've been trying to do here in Fort Frances, is to talk to officers and that have recently gotten on in your areas. There are new officers in absolutely every detachment in the province. Recruitment, is doing their hard work to bring us new officers to the front line. So to be able to speak to one of those officers who have recently gone through the process was a huge benefit. And, I'm happy to be here today in the open forum. But, sometimes it's nice to reach out and have a one-on-one coffee or sit down with one of those officers who has just gone through the process in the last couple of years for any tips or pointers to what might be beneficial.
So how do you normally set that up, Brad? Do people come to the front desk at your detachment and ask to see an officer, or is it usually just you hear about somebody through a colleague at work who needs some help? How does that normally look for you?
Yeah, it's happened both of those ways actually for me. Just yesterday we had somebody attend detachment wanting to talk to somebody about applying to the OPP. Last Tuesday, for example, I was on a ski hill down in the state of Minnesota and just happened to get talking to some guy, and he says, "Oh, I've got an application ready to go with the OPP." And then the other thing too is usually, people know an OPP officer, or if you don't, it's not hard to find one or know somebody who knows one in the province. There's 6,000 of us around. So, to be able to reach out through a network and just say, do you know anybody that I could talk to? And sit down to just talk about my application, review an application, get any tips or pointers. Here at our detachment, we actually have a recruitment liaison too, Sergeant Bartlett. So anybody that kind of get wind of applying, usually an email sent to Sergeant Bartlett, and then a little bit of follow-up comes in with recruitment and with constables that have, would be able to sit down with them and connect them for a resource there. So there's lots of different ways to reach out. I think also, Dan, you've gotten me in touch with some people in the past too through recruitment that are thinking about the Rainy River District area and just have some questions kind of on more of a personal level about what it's like, to move for one into Northwest Region from West Region, kind of lifestyle type of situation seem to be a lot of the biggest questions when you're making that 6th detachment selection through the application process. That can be a pretty daunting task when you look at all of the detachments that there are across this province and now I have to pick 6, right? So to talk about the lifestyle, I remember in my application process reading online, trying to figure out what's in each community. So to be able to talk to somebody on a personal level is definitely beneficial.
I love that you brought up Northwest Region. Since you did, let's talk about Northwest Region. Sorry, Renee. How have you found the transition from Southwestern Ontario to the Northwest?
It's been absolutely amazing for me. It's been a great positive experience on a personal level and also on a professional level. The major hits for personal level are cost of living for Northeast and Northwest region. I do believe they're pretty similar. And then additionally, like, we're not just living in the woods up here. It's the town of Fort Frances I'm in has Walmart, Canadian Tire, every kind of fast food restaurant or amenity. We're right on the border of Minnesota. A lot of my colleagues go down for NFL games and NHL games. Like, it's not what you would anticipate it to be. It's far different. And then secondly, professionally, the ability to fast track your career in the 3 years that I've been on, the amount of courses that I've been offered and been able to attend, has been definitely beneficial for my professional development.
Brad, was
Awesome.
Fort Frances one of your preferred locations? Is that one of your picks?
It actually wasn't at the time. So
Okay.
I remember getting the phone call and maybe you guys can speak to the willingness to serve idea a little bit better and maybe how that's transitioned over the past couple of years. But when I got the call, Fort Frances Detachment, Rain River District Detachment wasn't on any of my list.
Okay, so my next question is then, it wasn't on your list. You're doing something completely different than when in the plan.
Yeah.
And are you happy you did?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely. It's I'm very honored to be able to have a job with the Ontario Provincial Police. And when I signed up, part of the process was willingness to serve, and at any point, you could be working anywhere in Ontario. And so, I accepted that and went out with a sense of adventure and something different and a little bit of a challenge. It's 2,000 kilometers drive through the province from where I grew up to where I'm working now. Growing up, I could be in Florida at the same time on a beach, and I'm still in Ontario, where I am. So, it's been an absolutely positive experience for me in my life, and I'm, grateful for it.
What's one of your favorite things personally and one of your favorite things professionally where you're at?
Personally, where I'm at?
Yeah.
I have to say the lake life. Fort Frances is situated right on the edge of Rainy Lake, and then within an hour we can be on Lake of the Woods also. So in the summertime, to get out on the lake, I have a fishing boat and a Sea-Doo, and I'm able to bomb around, have some fun out there. It's absolutely beautiful boating and fishing. And then, of course, as I mentioned last week, I was just on the ski hills, an hour and a half away, having some fun down there. I haven't got a snowmobile yet or snow machine, but that seems to be next on the to-do list. And most people have several of them in their garages here. Yeah.
You can always find someone that you can borrow one or use one of theirs.
For sure, definitely.
So Christina says Constable Scoyne is my favorite.
Uh-oh.
Look at that. Fans.
Awesome. Yeah. Perfect.
So Steve is asking about facial hair. As far as the LFI goes, there's nothing prohibiting you from having facial hair. I would say make sure that you look professional when you're presenting yourself in an interview. I would think that would be the biggest thing. Volunteer work is a big part of what we do. And it's a question we get a lot. Right, Renee? Yes. Is it compulsory or is it recommended? It's recommended. And again, all of the 10 areas of assessment that we have, there's not one that really outweighs another. They all just kind of come together to make a candidate more competitive, right? So again, you may have, a ton of education, but you might lack a little bit in community service. Does that make you better or worse? It makes you, right? But again, when you're preparing for the process, think about how you could be more competitive and the most competitive against, you know, hundreds of other applicants that we get. Do you want to be just kind of there in the middle, or do you want to be somebody that stands out? And what is going to give you that, right?
There's another question about volunteering and updates. In your application and your resume, when you submit, you're telling us about all of your volunteering. If you're just doing more hours, that's fine. We don't need those updates. We can collect all that information should you make it to the interview stage. But if there's an update on additional volunteering locations or any updates to your file that will benefit your file that we're not aware of, you can absolutely submit that to OPP Hire with your file number. So remember that your files are active and fluid, and we want to know the hard work that you're doing. So if you're doing additional volunteering in different locations or anything's new to your file, an additional certificate, training, anything, please do update us.
Janine is, sorry, Janine asked about OPC and room and accommodations while you're at police college. That is all covered. It's part of your tuition fees. So there is a residence there that you stay in. There's a large cafeteria there where you get your meals as well. Corey says he's late because he was doing the shuttle run. Good job, Corey. Hopefully you hit at least level 7 on that. Age restrictions. So Karina's asking about age restrictions. I love this question because check out the latest episode of the podcast, Reflections Inside the OPP. Nicola Morris is the guest in that podcast, and she's a 53-year-old probationary constable. So she's just come out of OPC, and she's at Aurora Detachment, and she's a probationary constable there. So there is no age limit as far as, like, we have our minimum requirement of 18 years old, but after that the sky's kind of the limit.
There is a question here about how likely is someone going to be placed in their top 6. I know that Brad's situation, he was not, but I can say that we are very good at working with our candidates and doing our best for them. I think we're in the 80th percentile of being able to give one of the 6, but it doesn't always happen, like in Brad's case, if it's not operationally feasible. But do know that we absolutely consider your situations and do our best to place you.
Owen asks about being enrolled in police foundations. Haven't started the course yet, just want to know if there's any worthwhile benefit in taking it, or should I just apply to the OPP now? I would say that's always kind of that's up to you, kind of a decision. I would say that education often makes people more competitive. And if you think about the things that you're learning in a police-oriented course like Police Foundations, you'll be getting a nice foundation. In the event that you do get hired and you go to OPC, you'll have a nice base of knowledge there. So I wouldn't say it would be not worthwhile to take that, but I would also say, you know, like, would it hurt to apply to the OPP while you're going to school? And if you get a job, you get a job. And if you don't, you just continue in school, right? And then you kind of wait your year out if you're not successful, and then reapply once you've got a little more education under your belt. Those are just my thoughts. Anything different on that, Renee?
No, I'm looking at a question that is great for Brad, though. Brad, can you tell Janine and our viewers about OPC? They're asking about accommodations and what do they do for where they're located, and how does that work at OPC?
Sure, yeah. At the Ontario Police College, OPC, in Elmer, so you're just outside of London. It's a kind of a standalone facility out in Farmers Field, essentially, is where we're at. But it's a large complex full of classrooms, what do you call scenario areas, indoors and outdoors. But then in the living accommodations, I think there's 3 major hallways and sections of the police college. And in that, they have what's called a pod. And a pod consists of a living room, 2 washrooms, and then a series of bedrooms. So everyone has your own individual bedroom and living space there, where you kind of hunker down for the 3 months that you go through Ontario Police College. And then all of your food is provided as well through the cafeteria or the dining hall area. You are allowed to leave in the evening. Sometimes, we'd go into St. Thomas or London just to get a few things, whatever that may be. And you don't have to eat all of your meals there. And yeah, so it goes by pretty quick. It's a fun experience. You're there with usually about 500 other recruits from every police service in the province. When I was there, we actually had recruits from Quebec as well attending with us. So it was a great experience, definitely.
Thank you, Brad.
I was seeing some questions too about specialization. Some people asking about forensics and media officers and whatnot. And I have to say that, since coming to here, I've been trained as a scenes of crime officer, which is a stepping stone to the forensic identification unit. By way of positions, I believe that in Northwest Region, we have Thunder Bay and Kenora, where we have forensic ident offices. And in the last year, they've hired members to be promoted into as forensic identification constables in each of those locations. So there's definitely opportunities for forensics. And the OPP is always looking and training media officers as well. I know a bunch of officers here just went through the media relations training to be brought up to speed on that. So as a frontline member, you do get to put your toe in a lot of these specializations that a lot of people are asking about. Down the road, after you've developed skill set as a frontline officer, you can definitely step into more full-time roles too and positions within those specific areas.
Yeah, and I think that in most cases, I think that the organization likes to see, about 3 years of frontline experience before the officer starts to specialize. But again, it goes from it varies from detachment to detachment, and it varies from region to region. I know in Northwest, and I'm sure that Northeast is similar. Because of the attrition and the turnover that we sometimes have in our region at our detachments, those opportunities can come up maybe a little bit sooner than the 3 years for many members as well.
Mm-hmm.
Brad, since you're in your duration posting, what training, like since you showed up at detachment first day with your coach, what kind of training have you taken so far outside of just frontline duties?
So I'm a scenes of crime officer, so SOCO. I'm also a coach officer now.
Fantastic.
I'm coaching my second recruit. I've taken courses in Aurelia on warrant writing, and it's the basic detectives course. It's kind of the introductory course there to becoming a detective constable. So you learn warrant writing, advanced interviewing techniques, a bit on child interviewing techniques. I'm not a child interviewer, that's a separate course, but kind of gives you the brief overview of everything there.
So for our viewers, it's pretty neat because Brad gets to a detachment, he starts learning things that he's interested in, and he can start taking courses on it. Even if he's not on those specialty units, it just shows that piece of the OPP of why we're so interested in ongoing learning and ongoing education. Because just in 3 years, look at how many courses and training that Brad's been on already. It's really key that even if you're done your post-secondary education, what are you doing to learn and grow? So keep that in mind, keep that area of assessment active and fluid, and continue learning and bringing some more additional skills into your policing application.
Hey, Brad, what does the average work week look like for a police officer?
Yeah, so for frontline policing, there's kind of one of two different rotations. Here in Fort Frances, we have the 4-4 schedule. So we do 4 days on, 4 days off. But the 4 days on, we do 2 day shifts and then 2 night shifts. So then, for example, I worked last night actually from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. Was my last night shift, and now I get to enjoy 4 days off. And yeah, so that's the typical. But then there's always opportunities for call outs for overtime, for things like scene security. Let's say there's a major case happening in the area, they'll call in extra officers to assist with that. So that's straight overtime pay or you can bank the hours to take them off in lieu, as another opportunity there. So there's always opportunities. For call-outs, I'm also a member of the provincial liaison team. So that's through the Indigenous Policing Bureau with the OPP. And so there's always a chance that I could get a call from my sergeant in that department and be flown up to a Northern Reserve to assist with some sort of Indigenous crisis issue or community event.
So
Yeah.
neat, everything that you've
Yeah,
been involved in already, Brad.
Yeah, for sure. It's been quite an experience jumping on the OPP plane and flying up to a northern community and flying in there. It's pretty cool, definitely.
And all within
Is
3 years.
Yeah, exactly.
it is, and it's yeah, I mean, it's something to see those to see a lot of those communities. They're just so beautiful. They're such a beautiful area. It's like untouched, these small communities that are just kind of dropped in the wilderness, and they thrive there. It's actually really cool to be in those environments, in those communities.
Yeah, such amazing people too. Yeah.
Hunter says, "Good afternoon from Moosonee."
Oh, hi, Hunter, and hi,
Hi,
Matt.
Hunter.
Matt's tuned in.
Yeah. I see someone asked about vegan food options about OPC and if the process goes through quickly. There definitely any dietary restrictions are catered to at the police college there. And also, so with the OPP, you do 3 months in Elmer and then you're 2 months in Aurelia at the Provincial Police Academy through the OPP. And any sort of dietary restrictions are catered through the whole process.
Adam asks, what are some interview questions regularly asked? Can't tell you that, Adam. Can't give away all our secrets. Somebody from Chatham.
I have to say with the interview questions, like nothing's off the table. I would just have to say,
Be honest and bring your best
exactly.
self.
Yeah, exactly. Because in the process, you have your interview with your recruitment, and then you're assigned somebody who's asking questions about the background interview too. So then you're assigned a background interviewer who really digs in, and they'll contact everybody and anybody.
So I'm going to answer two quick questions here. So Douglas is asking about volunteer reference letters and kind of that whole like experience of like disclosing how much volunteer experience you have and how far back to go. Go as far back as you can, Douglas, because I want to see a body of work. I want to see that you really are invested in your community, right? Because that's mostly why people want to become police officers. That's what they tell me anyway, is that they want to be invested in their community. They want to be a part of their community. They want to build bridges in their community. They want to build trust in their community. So these are all things that I hear. So show me how you're doing that. And the more you can show me and tell me, the better off it is. Alberto's asking about feedback on an incomplete application. So Alberto, I'm not sure if you're indicating like an unsuccessful application. So if you've been declined or deferred for some reason, do you get feedback on why? We typically don't do that. Actually, just had a conversation with a gentleman who was declined and he wanted some feedback. We can't give you feedback. Again, we have to protect the integrity of our process, so we don't provide feedback. But usually what I do with people is I ask them how their process went, right? And they usually kind of talk a little bit about their interview, their psych, their background investigation, the different parts of it. And I ask how they feel about it, right? And I ask them how they think it went. And often well, this didn't go quite as well as I thought. And then I explore that a little bit. And usually they'll find the answers that they're looking for just through conversation, me trying to get them to think about their process and where they may have been a little bit less competitive. So that's kind of as good as it gets, unfortunately, Alberto. So yeah. What else we got, Renee?
We have do we know when the background stage has been completed? Well, for this one here, the background encompasses so many things. I mean, you go through a background right through to being offered employment, but in the background, there's just so many stages from psychological to medical, assessments being done. Also, your backgrounders working away. There might be additional fitness going on in there. It's just such a big piece. So we don't inform you necessarily of each stage completion or whatnot. But if you make it through the background investigation, then you can likely be offered employment. That being said, though, the background continues right through onto OPC as well. So you're constantly being assessed and in background stages throughout your whole process, including while you're in your education at OPC and the academy. So keep that in mind as well.
Juan is asking, I hope I pronounce that right, or John is asking about the REACH program. Is it possible to apply anytime or wait for application period? A better choice. You'll be notified. Usually when we run our REACH program, we open it up for applications and then we have a closing date for people to have their applications in by. So it's not like it's not like an open kind of application for the REACH program. So I think we're going to be offering one soonish. I think there's one coming in the new year from what I understand. I don't know exactly when. But just stay tuned to our social media and look out for it. And when the opportunity presents itself, apply for it, and hopefully you'll get into it. What advice do you have? Go ahead, Renee.
No, go ahead. I was going to ask Brad a question, so do this one first.
Okay, what advice do you have for someone starting in the police service to excel and stand out? Just work hard. Right? Do what people are asking you to do. There's usually a reason, and it's probably for your own good as far as your learning and development goes. Ask a lot of questions. I think back to my grandfather always said, you should be seen and not heard. Right? That was a kind of one of those life lessons that my grandfather taught me, and I've kind of always lived by it. Not until now that I'm doing these things, and I'm now heard a lot more than, but it's just when I was growing up, I always kept thinking about that, be seen and not heard. So just be there, learn, ask questions when you need to. But you're more likely to learn when you're listening than when you're talking. So just be that person that asks questions and learns and is eager to learn and is eager to be involved. And, you'll build confidence, and as you build confidence, you can ask for opportunities to help your career and get into the things that you're interested in.
How did you find, Brad, being at police college for 3 months and then also following up with the academy after that for another couple of months? Someone's asking if it felt long.
I didn't find it too long. You're definitely busy. They keep you moving pretty good, and you're loaded on with a great deal of information from all the legislations, all of the authorities of the police in the province of Ontario, a lot of defensive tactics and safety type of classes, and then through into firearms training and operating a police vehicle. So there's quite a bit of information that's coming down the pipe at you there. And so they definitely keep you busy. So for me, it went by pretty quickly. I know that some people with families, definitely had different challenges than what I did going through the process. But you get through it and you look at what's coming at the end of that, which is an amazing career and opportunity for 30 years and whatnot. So I didn't find it too bad personally at all. So.
I agree. When you first get there, it feels heavy and there's a lot coming at you, but it sure flies by.
Yeah.
I felt that way too.
Yeah.
Dan, maybe talk about, they're asking us about the ERT teams, the rescue teams. What's that process like?
It can be tough. It's a bit of they like to test you mentally and physically as well. So both of those can tax you in different ways. Usually they like to ask for 3 years of experience before you can express interest in those types of opportunities. Again, in Northwest, I do know of officers who have joined the emergency response team with less than 3 years. So again, because there's been opportunities available. So again, it can vary a little bit. but usually it involves an application, and then some type of an interview process, some psych testing. I think with both the emergency response team and the tactics and rescue unit, there's kind of an assessment week that you'll participate in, or 10 days of assessment that you'll participate in, where they, you might be a little bit sleep deprived. They might physically test you and push you to your limits physically. They might get you doing some tasks while you're fatigued and stuff. They just want to see how you operate under stress, how you work as a team, different things like that. And then if you're selected after that, then you will be put forward to attend the training. And then again, they differ a little bit. Every specialty has their own kind of training syllabus, and the timings vary a little bit. So again, you'll just be like, for IRT, it's like 10 weeks, so 9 or 10 weeks of training. True has, they've had a couple different cycles where, you've got an 8-week block, and then you go back again a little bit later for another 8-week block or a 6-week block. So there's different training syllabus, and canines kind of has their own. They've got a 16-week thing, because you've got to bond with your dog, train your dog, different types of things like that, right? So every specialty like that, kind of on the tactics side, has their own kind of course training standard that they follow. But be sure that it's not easy, but it is extremely rewarding when you're finished.
Here's a neat question.
I see quite a few questions.
Yeah, go ahead, Brad.
Oh, I was just going to say there's quite a few questions coming about the physical components and whether it's hard or not. For me personally, going through the application process about a year before, I actually hired a personal trainer just to help me to get to that level, which I needed to be with the OPP. And then I ended up joining a CrossFit gym. And since that, the group that was in my CrossFit gym, 3 of us have gone on to become police officers. So I think to have support in your fitness journey, and whatever that looks like, is definitely important. And to have people that can help you along with that process, because for some of us, like myself, it's more of a challenge than some others that may be just naturally more fit and agile. So it's definitely something that's doable, and obtainable. And then help, like speaking with some of the people in my area here that are in the middle of the hiring process, the one most intimidating form, I think, has to be that fitness page. And so looking at that every week out and staying on top of that, is definitely a little bit of a challenge. But what I told them to do is to think outside the box. So I think the one column is other activities. So, just talking to this guy recently, he's like, oh yeah, I play hockey a couple times a week. I looked at his fitness page and there's no hockey on it. So, and I even said the same thing. I said, well, we met on the ski hill. Well, how come going skiing for the day isn't an other activity, right? So you got to kind of think outside the box, and those things that you think you're doing for fun are actually definitely a fitness component there. The other
Give
one
yourself the credit you deserve.
Yeah, exactly, for sure. Even something like going for a walk with the dog, it gets you out. It's something that you're doing that's in a physical component. And so it was on my fitness logs, when I applied. And then the run times. A lot of people kind of shy away from the runs. Advice that was given to me through the hiring process was to do a long run, a medium run, and your short run in a week. So at least, you're running more than once a week, and that you're running both indoors and outdoors. And I know that OPP Hire and it does a good job at showcasing the recruits in a lot of their morning workouts, that you're up at 6 a.m. working out as a recruit class in Aurelia. And when I was there, it was December and January. So we're running in the snow, we're running in a bit of ice, we're running in all weather conditions. When I landed there, we're running in the rain also. So it's kind of all conditions, indoors and outdoors, and just staying on top of that and showing, because when you do your pin test, you're not on a treadmill. So I know that I can get on a treadmill, I can set my tread speed to 7 or 7.5, and I can get my pin time that I need to do. But the second that you go out on the road and you're pounding the pavement, you got to learn to pace yourself, right? And that's how the test is done, is through a open run outside. So that's just a bit of advice for the fitness aspect for me.
I think fitness is probably the most intimidating I would say, piece of it, of our process that people freak out about kind of the most, right? But like you say, it's you referred to it as a journey, and I 100% believe that it's a journey. And I've actually, recommended to people, again, people should do what they want to do. But if you think about the benefit of getting a job with the OPP, over $100,000 a year salary, benefits, pension, all the support services that we have, what is that worth? What are you willing to do to get that, right? Are you willing to pay a little bit out of pocket to get a trainer like you did, Brad? How bad do you want it, I guess, is and Renee and I were talking about motivation yesterday. Like, how motivated are you to to achieve this goal of becoming a police officer?
That's a good one.
Well,
I like this for Brad. Just because you're a newer officer, Brad, how do you manage your schedule so you don't get exhausted or overwhelmed? Maybe just say how you didn't get exhausted and overwhelmed through the process, and then also as a new officer, because they're kind of both different stages where you have to have that balance.
Yeah, for sure. Through the process of applying, I was working full time, and then you're working through this pretty big process of hiring and appointments and going for eye testing and hearing testing and different interviews and psychological testing, and then you've got a background investigator that's coming to your house. So I think I've always had a great relationship through the process I did with recruitment, and they were always accommodating. I remember I was in Kelowna at a conference prior, and I got a call like, "Oh, can we meet on this day?" It's like, "No, I'm unfortunately I can't meet on that day," and that was fine. It's not a hit against you or a knock against you. I think that recruitment understands that everybody leads busy lives and are definitely willing to work with applicants in order to find the time that works best for everybody to get through the process. So I think that was a comforting fact, and for me anyways. And then professionally, I think that finding time for yourself, you definitely have to make sure that you're not working every day and being run down. And just being cognitive about that, and that being a forefront of your mind, and definitely mental health preparedness is part of that. Through the OPP, we have absolutely amazing benefits through our benefits supplier, with lots of people to talk to. I'll use a personal example for mine. I have a counselor that I speak to and check in with every few months, and we just talk about goal setting and where I'm looking to go and opportunities that I'm trying to do. So it's not just when you're down and out and looking for mental health support. These counselors are really good at helping people through all different type of situations and developments and helping to better yourself as a person. So definitely reach out, to any sort of supports. We have internal mental health support teams and as well as external ones. So definitely keeping your mind leveled out is very important for sure.
I was just going to say, I'm just going to go because Brad can handle all of this.
I know.
So I'm just going to.
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
And he's so fresh out of school and immersed in learning.
TJ is asking, does every detachment have a mobile crisis response team or a similar unit? No. We are moving more toward that now, though, and I know that Fort Frances does. Why don't you tell us how that works in Fort Frances, Brad?
Our mobile crisis team?
Yeah.
So within the Rainy River District, we have 3 mobile crisis workers. We have 1 that's in Atikokan, and then 2 that work out of Fort Frances detachment here. And so what happens is, let's say I go to a call and someone's life just isn't quite going the way, the direction they want. Or they're struggling with their mental health, or maybe some sort of an addiction or substance abuse problem, then what I do is I send a referral to our mental health team here, mobile crisis response. All 3 of our crisis workers are Canadian Mental Health Association employees and work alongside with a road officer. Sometimes they're able to go there in the moment and follow up with them in the time of crisis. But sometimes, like, for example, they don't work on night shifts. So last night, for example, if I took a mental health call, I send an email in the morning to the workers, and then they're going to provide follow-up to that person or their family to get them in touch with resources and make sure they know what resources are available in our area. or if not, a referral to an agency maybe in Thunder Bay or Winnipeg or Toronto, whatever they require.
Is OACP certification necessary to begin the recruitment process? The OPP does not require your OACP certificate. That being said, and this is another question that I tend to see a fair amount, and I'm sure that Renee does as well. Does it make you more competitive? Well, you can include it in your file, and any information that we have in your file makes you more competitive. So yes, it probably could, but there's a cost associated with it too. So if you're applying to other police services as well that require it, and you have it and you want to include it, then awesome. I would say by all means include it. But if it's just, you know what, I want to be with the OPP, that's the only police service I want to work for, we don't have that requirement. So I would consider saving the $275 or $300 that it costs. So.
All right. We have, is the physical test hard? So just in general for that, just like Brad was saying, you have to prepare for it. I like to tell candidates that police fitness is kind of like a sport. That's how I treat it. If I'm training for basketball, I condition for basketball. If I'm training for gymnastics, I'd condition for gymnastics. So when I'm training for police fitness, I condition for police fitness, and I focus in on the skills I need to be successful on those tests. So even as a serving police officer for 20 years now, when I know I'm booking my PIN testing, my annual PIN testing, I start preparing 8 weeks ahead and start honing in on the skills that I know I need to be able to achieve my PIN test. So understanding police fitness when you're in this process is key. Implementing exercises that are going to help you excel in shuttle run versus the 1.5 miles versus the prep test obstacle, the victim pull, all those kinds of different muscles you need to use. Be familiar with those tests and implement exercises that are going to help you be successful. So is the physical test hard? It's not hard if you understand it and you train for it and just be active in your lifestyle. But it is hard if you go in and you're not aware of it or sure of how to train for it. So ask those questions and get familiar.
Steve is asking about demonstrating motivation, basically. Is there a recommended way to explain the types of media that you're following, like these AMAs, the podcast, different things like that? I would say with that, I think those things probably will, you can have opportunity in your interview, if you make it to an interview, to articulate those things. I think in the application, there's probably some place that you can articulate, the social media that you're following and the involvement that you have there. Brad, Alex is asking, in your free time at OPC, did you find yourself studying or preparing for the next day? What kind of things did you do in your off hours at OPC?
There's definitely quite a bit of homework to do at the end of the day, and assignments and follow-up, and just in preparation of the next day. I didn't find that I was, up until 2 a.m. every night doing those things. However, you definitely, put your head down and you get a couple hours of work in, and then probably hit the gym or there's swimming pool at OPC. So you hit the gym or the pool, have a bit of relaxation. Every night there's intramurals going on, whether it's basketball or badminton or volleyball, going on in the gym area also. So there's definitely a balance to be made there. And some people, it is a bit more of a struggle than others. And typically you'd find study groups all over the campus of people just coming together to help each other out to, understand the Highway Traffic Act a little bit better, or criminal offenses. So there's definitely supports, and it's, as I say, it is a pretty fun time, and there's lots going on. But most evenings it was, work for a few hours, and then definitely relaxation for a few hours too.
You want to?
Okay, go ahead, Renee.
So there's just questions about auxiliary and fitness. To apply to the auxiliary, there is not a fitness test. It'd be fantastic, though. They do provide opportunities to do the fitness pin when you are an auxiliary. Also, if you're an auxiliary and you're planning to apply to be a regular frontline member, it's fantastic also to obtain that fitness pin prior to applying. So you have those resources available at the detachment or detachments nearby you that can fitness test you as an auxiliary. So if you're planning to apply, do make attempts to obtain your annual fitness pins as an auxiliary.
Andrew's asking about the intakes and how large they are. So currently we are doing our best to fill 135 seats 3 times a year. So that's, you know, I don't know, I'm not great at math, but that's close to 500 people. That would be like a December intake, that would be an April intake, and that would be like an end of August type of an intake. So 3 times a year. So again, if you're trying to figure out, you know, when to apply or when the next intake is in relation to where you are maybe in the process, or, you know, thinking about getting into the process and maybe possibly which, you know, when your process would be complete. Usually it's 3 to 6 months ish to get through from application to offer in our process. So keep that in mind when you're applying, and kind of the timelines, the end of December, the mid-April, and the end of August as far as our intakes go.
Absolutely. Lost my spot here. Oh, there was.
Janine's asking about the Be the Bridge Challenge and Inclusions Insights Challenge. Do applicants often complete though? Yes, I would say probably, I'm trying to think, roughly I would say 70% of applicants that I have interviewed have completed at least the Be the Bridge Challenge, which is great. I know Renee's done it. It's on my list of things to do. Renee's challenged me to do it, and I'm going to do it in 2023 myself. So I've probably got a bunch of the challenges already, but I'm going to do it in 2023. I promise. There's also a Indigenous Canada course or program that the University of Alberta puts on free of charge. You can register for it and take it free of charge through the University of Alberta. I think at the end, to get your certificate, they charge a fee for your certificate, but to actually take the course is free of charge. And from everything, again, that's on my list of things to take. But it's also, from what I understand, it's a very good course as well.
They're asking the difference between REACH and auxiliary. REACH is a mentoring program within Uniform Recruitment, which we will post when we are accepting applications into REACH. Okay, so if you go to www.opp.ca or you're following us on one of our social media platforms, you're going to be notified of when those REACH openings are there. The auxiliary unit is a volunteer policing unit in which you would be committing approximately 10 to 15 hours per month, either at community events, either on duty, and also in training. But that's a monthly commitment as a volunteer, as a voluntary auxiliary constable with the OPP. So 2 completely different things. The auxiliary unit, however, is a great stepping block for learning about the organization, getting volunteer hours, and a lot of experience with officers and tremendous learning and training. So you hit a lot of those areas of assessment by applying to be an auxiliary member. And I know that we are hiring auxiliaries. So please, if you are interested, go to opp.ca and look at our auxiliary unit under the careers tab.
I started as an auxiliary member, and I know Renee did as well. It's a great launch pad into this career. It gives you a great kind of idea of what to expect and what the career involves. So yeah, I 100% recommend it. if you're not at that place where you feel like you're competitive to apply as a regular recruit, definitely look into the auxiliary program. Brad, did you have a favorite class at OPC? Shay is asking about a favorite class at OPC.
Oh, favorite class. I would have to say the patrol vehicle operations class is pretty fun. I think that
Skid
seems to be a
control.
favorite. Yeah, they slick down a big runway area essentially and send you down there, and the vehicle starts spinning, and you got to get it back. Remember the one too? They put the walk
Yeah.
on the bowl on the front
With
of
the tennis ball?
vehicle. Yeah, and you got to keep the tennis ball in the bowl as you're flying around this track. So it's
They're
pretty
still
fun.
doing that, eh?
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Somebody's asking about vaccinations here. So is it Munoz? Is asking if COVID-19 vaccines are still mandatory. They were never mandatory with the OPP. It was encouraged, obviously, for our members to be vaccinated, but our members could choose to not be vaccinated. Our unvaccinated members were required during the height of the pandemic to test, to do rapid antigen test every 48 hours as part of their kind of requirement attached to not being vaccinated or choosing to not be vaccinated. So, but those are kind of on the back burner now. We don't have any of those requirements as it stands right now because of the relaxed restrictions. So
I'm
what
wondering,
else, Renee?
I'm just thinking, I just want to throw a question out there to our viewers. I just want to see what they answer when we ask them what does motivation mean to you when applying to the OPP? I just want to see some answers from our viewers. Tell us what you think motivation means to you when looking at our process, wanting to be a police officer, our 10 areas of assessment. I'm just curious to see what comes in. Like we were saying earlier, that's one piece of the pie that we often talk about, and it's in all 10 areas of our assessment you need to be motivated in. And like Dan was saying, in order to bring your most competitive self, everybody has different levels of competitiveness in each area of assessment, but you need to honestly assess yourself, see where you can improve and work on those areas. Our competitive candidates wake up every day and they pick something to improve in those 10 areas of assessment. And that's where you find that life balance, right? And that's when we talk about your balancing that community service, your schooling, maybe employment, all of these things are happening, fitness. You need to be able to assess all that and make sure that you have a nice balance between all those 10 areas of assessment. If you can come in as a competitive candidate while balancing all of that, then we have a pretty good idea that you'll likely be able to balance a policing career. So it is a lot that we hand you, and we know that it's a big task to be competitive in our process, but it definitely shows us that you're able to get through this process and be able to handle everything that's going to be thrown at you in a policing career, because it's a whole new whirlwind, isn't it, Brad? Coming into policing, and it's a completely new lifestyle.
Absolutely, yeah.
I actually had this conversation. I helped coach a junior girls volleyball team at one of the local high schools here in Thunder Bay, and I actually sat on the gym floor with the girls yesterday and had this exact conversation. Like, where are you? Where do you want to be? And what do you think it takes to get there? And how hard are you willing to work to get that? Those are the kind of the key questions that I think people need to ask themselves when it comes to motivation. And that's what motivation means to me, is like, how hard am I willing to work to achieve my goal, right? Am I willing to, and am I willing to outwork Brad Scoyne, right? Like, that's, in my mind, that's kind of where I go, right? Like, I know that I'm not competing for this job alone, and I need to outcompete everybody who's applied for this position as well. I need to shine. I need to be, as Andrew York said in my podcast in season 1, Andrew York said, make yourself undeniable, right? And that to me is motivation, is just that fire to to succeed, right?
Let's look at our motivational responses. I agree. I loved that podcast. Going
I
beyond
usually
one's
love them all.
abilities. Pushing their mindset. Satisfying level of achievement. Fantastic. Motivating.
Giving life to a dream.
Yeah.
I love that.
Being competitive. The opportunities the OPP has to offer.
Oh, do you want me to read Steve's?
Yeah, we'll read Steve's before we wrap up.
Okay. So Steve says, motivation to me is being able to see myself in the future as a frontline officer and understand that there are areas of my life that will require improvement and dedication to make that a reality. Motivation truly comes when I am tired at the end of a workday and just wanting to spend time with my wife and kids, but understanding I need to get to the gym, or when I wake up on Saturday morning and make sure I get up and moving and to the place I volunteer, Habitat for Humanity. I need to be the best version of myself now. Oops, he just got moved on me here. I need to be the best version of myself now and maintain that level, not only throughout the application, but upon hiring, as well as my life and my fellow officers' lives will depend on my dedication. That's a very good answer, Steve.
Mhm.
There's so many more coming
sure.
in about mental health and about attending AMAs. And I want you to know that we will read all of these. So thank you for submitting them. I love this question.
It is. We should. Why do we not do these? They do it like this all the time.
We always
Mhm.
will now. Thank
People
you,
learning from
everybody.
people. I wish we could just keep reading them and reading them. We'll read them all. I think if you follow it too, you can read them on the comments of the live on the social media. I think you can read all these comments. So make sure you take a look and read other people's comments. You can learn a lot from other people just by seeing their perspective and their point of view and perspectives, right? So make sure you do that. Brad, thank you so much for joining us today. Really
Very
appreciate
nice
your
to meet
input. Thanks for answering all the questions. It was awesome.
Of course, yeah. Thanks for having me.
Okay, Renee, you take care.
Thank
And
you.
we will see everybody. Stay safe and have a great week.